Hello and welcome to the Lot Pod, brought to you by ACD&B, who are a branding and creative design studio based in Farsley, Leeds. They create standout brands. So if any companies out there need a brand new logo or a brand refresh, just get in touch with ACD&B. They are, of course, the designer of our Lot Pod magazine, the Lot 17A fanzine, I should say. That is still available on the Lot Pod shop, issue 2. So make sure you visit that to make sure you buy one of those. This is the match review panel for the Leeds versus Wigan game, and you've probably noticed by now, I am not Eddie. I am.
I'm a Stat Man
Rhys.
A bit weird having to do my own jingle, but Eddie is currently away on holiday. As I've said, this is the match review panel for the utterly bonkers game on Friday night. And before I introduce our guests, let's have a listen to how the game sounded.
On it comes, over the top it goes to Miski and Abbas. Miski will get the first try of the night. Meanwhile, here comes Wigan, and here comes Bevan French, and here comes potentially another Wigan try. Oh, hit me.
And Leeds just look in pieces here.
And it's direct contact with the head.
He's gone for the red card.
Wait a minute!
Hang on a minute, because the ball's been given away, and Newman is away. Sean, sorry to interrupt, and Leeds have got the break they needed, and Harry Newman will get the try that will get Leeds back into this. Set, restart again. Holroyd driving for the line and getting there. Myler hoisting the kick. That one goes straight up in the air and causes some problems. And Cameron Smith, and it's Myler. Myler will get the try, and Leeds will take the lead. It's snapped up again. It's snapped up once more by Newman. He's going to do it once again. Absolutely incredible. Bang in front of those posts, about 10 metres out as Jared O'Connor finds Sangare. Sangare looking for an offload, manages to find Cameron Smith. The ball comes to Rhys Martin. Martin cuts back in field. Rhys Martin gets another lead. Smith intercepted twice. Liam Byrne on it comes to Cust, and Cust, he's been intercepted by Tyndall, and Tyndall is away. Across comes Wardle, but Tyndall cuts back in field, and he's going to round off the victory.
Another week, another mixtape. Let's bring in our guests. First, we have Lawrie. Lawrie, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Can't complain. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm not bad, thank you. And we have Josh from that band Kimber. How are you, Josh?
Yeah, good mate, thank you. Been on a bit of an emotional roller coaster this weekend, but ready for tonight.
Did that mixtape feel like the summary of the game? Yeah, I mean, we tried to make it to a bit. I tried to make it a bit of two halves. In the first half was terrible, and we're going to come on that. And obviously, the second half was great. I just want to pick up on one of the comments in the chats, which is ZB Creative saying you should have shaved your head and dedicated it to the main man. I could have done. I've got a wedding in September, ZB, and it's probably not best for me to risk the wedding for that. So in true Lot Pod fashion, we start with the positives. Josh, what positives have you got from the game on Friday night?
There was lots of positives after that second half. One of the couple of main ones that I picked up on was that we got to see the Wigan walk at 24:18, which was nice. That's quite a nice early time to see that. And also, that is now going to be the capitulation which sticks in my head over the United loss to Palace, which I still haven't got over, as that's derailed our season in football. So now when I think of a capitulation, I'll think of Wigan. Beyond that, I've got things like Tom Holroyd, who I thought was excellent in both halves. More minutes for Big Mick. I think we showed good fighting attitude in the second half. I have concerns about what it takes for us to show that and why that doesn't start from the beginning, but this is positive. And then mainly I was just thinking about this weekend is that it's just such a young squad. These are all just valuable lessons that these young players will be learning about mental resilience and things like what Stevie Ward was saying on the touchline, which I thought he was also excellent.
Lawrie, what positive have you got?
Well, we'll go. It was a difficult one because I did feel a bit conflicted considering the first half. I thought Myler played well, especially in the halves, which I wasn't sure he was going to do. Thought he played very well, especially that last 20-minute period, 30-minute period. He looked really comfortable and started, controlling the game with Austin. I thought Newman played all right. I mean, I know he got the 2 intercept tries, but it was good that, and it sounds horrible to say, that he could actually sprint and run and not get an injury or something like that, it sounds, which is always a positive. I just thought with the positives were the great spirit. That second half, was there a poor performance from any of our team in that second half? I don't think there was. It was literally just real good aggression and let's get this job done. And I think that was crucial to the result, obviously.
So let's go through this in 3 stages then. The lineup I want to talk about first, obviously. No Caesar, no Sinfield, Myler getting put in at half-back, Hanley going to full-back. Obviously, he was bringing Liam Tyndall in. What were your thoughts on the lineup, Josh, going into the game? Did you think that was a lineup that was going to produce 40 points?
Well, probably not 40 points, no. I mean, I'm in a position where I don't think our squad is actually good enough to compete and challenge the top teams this year. I'm one who hasn't been getting too over the top with the wins or the losses because I think before the season I saw a squad. I just thought maybe top 6 is what to aim for. I don't think I felt overly optimistic by the signings, but equally I wasn't pessimistic. I think that's about where we're at. There's things I think I said on the group chat that I was looking forward to seeing Hanley at fullback.
So is that a decision you would have made then? That lineup?
Yeah, I've completely washed my hands of Caesar. Like I just have no time for him at all now. I mean, put it like this: he's been out of the side. What is it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Have we missed him whatsoever? Would either of those games be different if he'd have played? 7 is the most important position on the pitch, and his influence is shown by how little we've missed him. So I've been wanting him he'll be gone at the end of the year anyway. Either play Sinfield and get some minutes into a young lad, or let's see what Hanley looks like at fullback. He did a spell there earlier in the year. I can't remember which game it was. And he looked pretty good. And Myler jumped in next to Austin, and I thought they worked better together. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of a Myler-Austin halfback partnership. I don't think that's a good one. But considering where the bar is, I equally don't rate Myler at fullback. So let's see what Hanley's like at fullback. And if Hanley is decent at fullback, it might add another decent member to the spine, even if just for this year. Another thing two more things that I thought from the lineup was I like Lizzoni as more of an impact player, and I like Holroyd to start.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I'd sort of picked up on. And then again, I'm gutted. I mean, this is part of the roller coaster. I was gutted that Walters hadn't kept his place in the side, and even more gutted now about the news that's come out over the weekend about.
And we will come on to Sam Walters a bit later on, actually. Lawrie, what were your thoughts on the lineup? Were you thinking that was a 40-point score inside?
Absolutely not. No. I looked at it. I thought, who's going to be the fall guy this week? And we'll come on to that in a bit, obviously. when I say Myler, you kind of think Myler is the fullback. I know he's not as good as he was at fullback, but when he's been there recently, he's all right. So when we moved into Haas, I was a bit like, he's got to step up a bit. And he did, I thought. I thought the kicking game from us were better, especially in the second half. Austin seemed to thrive off him a bit, which we hadn't done. We hadn't had a halfback to really do that with. Overall, forwards-wise, Tom Holroyd, he's our star forward at the minute, I think. When he gets the opportunity, when he comes on, or if he starts, he's absolutely class. No, I thought it was an interesting take. I was worried about Tyndall. I can't lie. Whenever I say Tyndall's name, without saying national lad, I do kind of feel that he sometimes does make errors, and it's almost like sometimes they can be quite costly. But I was just hoping that, and hoping it didn't materialise into anything serious.
Leeds Bandits just put in the chat that I bet Eddie thought it was a 40-point scoring side. He would have been sat, he's on holiday right now, he'd have been sat wherever sat quite happy at his phone, smiling, going, I told you. He'd just been screaming at his phone saying, I told you it would be to win by 24, something like that.
Stop clock and all that.
Just picking at your point about the kicking, Austin only made 2 kicks all game, whether it was attacking kicks or kicks in general play. In fact, he didn't make 1 attacking kick. He only did 2 kicks in general play. Minor did 4 attacking kicks and 11 kicks in general play. So they clearly had a role that either of them did. Austin ran for 130 meters. He had 8.7 meters per average per carry, which is, it's not bad really for a half, is those figures. Okay, so that's the lineup then. Let's talk about that first half, because in reality, in the game, that's what I kind of was expecting in my mindset of the last 2 games. The first try, score out wide, I can always sometimes let them go. But obviously the Bevan French try I thought was piss poor. A Bevan French shouldn't be running through 3 players. I think Gannon was one of the ones in there, and Austin. And then
Austin's attempt on that was ridiculous. It was O'Connor, Martin, and Gannon, and Austin just almost slaps him on the back and loses his belt. It's just so poor.
Yeah. And then obviously following that was, I can't remember who passed it, but passed it into Cameron Smith's head. It bounces, comes forward, and it was accidental offside, and it was an easy 2 points. And I put that in the mixtape. John Wilkin just, saying Leeds are just in disarray, and it was awful. So in that first half, what did you guys make of it, Josh? What was your mindset going through that first half?
I was fuming, to be honest. I thought we were so passive in defence. I thought our attitude was disgusting. The thing that was frustrating me more than anything was our handling errors. And not just say if you're making an error and you're playing, off the cuff football with loads of offloads and you're attacking, then you can kind of take that like we did with the Tony Smith sides. But we'd been under pressure for 5 minutes, however many repeat sets. They'd make a mistake, we'd get the ball back. Within the first play, we'd just drop it. I mean, we talk about that one that French scored. That it was just such a simple scrum play that he just ran through 4 blokes for. But that came off a handling error from Hash Hanley. The ball got kicked through, and I know he's not a fullback, and I've just said I'd like to see him there, but. It was a basic take, and he just let it hit his chest, and it just bobbled out of him, and that's what the scrum came from, I'm sure. And it was like disbelief, like we were our own worst enemy. I didn't actually think that Wigan were very good. I thought, yes, it was a game of 2 halves, but actually I thought there was a thread between the both halves, and that was Wigan weren't very good, and they didn't need to be very good in that first half. They literally went through the motions. They had Shorrocks playing 6 next to Smith, who's a back rower. And we all know how the reaction came when Rowan Smith trialled Gannon at 6 in pre-season. And they were just going through them, but it was so easy for them to score against us. I just thought it was so passive. We had the effort wasn't there, the aggression wasn't there, and the actual skill levels weren't there. And if it wasn't for Newman's interception just before half time, I think it could have been a very bleak half time. Also, obviously, we lost Tetevano, which possibly helped us in that he maybe fired us up. And it hasn't really been mentioned, but we lost Bentley to it in a HIA as well. So we played without another bench rotate, like a bench spot. So that's another little positive for the energy levels. But
so, Lawrie, what were your thoughts going through the first half? Because I've got some tweets here that I've picked up that people said at half time. One was Rowan Smith have done remarkably well to waste all of the credit he built up by getting us to the grand final last season, mid-May. Richard Silverwood tweeted out at some point, so let me just find it, saying he's getting nothing from this Leeds team. There's good players in that team. A great coach gets more from them. Smith, in my opinion, isn't that. The comments at half-time and during that first half were starting to turn very sour. Where were you in your mindset during that first half?
Annoyed. I just felt like there was nothing going forward. There was no. It was all when we did have possession, it was all down the line and trying to create gaps that way. There was no actual forward, somebody going, right, you take that ball in, take the ball in. Did you see many of our props making any much yards in that first half? I mean, you'll probably might have those stats, Rhys, but to me, it was just very flat-footed almost. Like, we didn't get to their half very often, apart from when we scored the try. You know, we were just bogged down, and it didn't seem that we had, again, no leadership to say, come on, lads, we're going to do some even set plays or just drive it down the middle. It was just really flat, and it was disappointing. And like we're on about Tevano getting sent off, weirdly, it seemed like the players all of a sudden twigged like, oh, we're going to have to do something now. Yeah. And you know, you're almost like this is it. And well, the rest of the is history. But the first half, there was nothing again, and it was possibly our worst half this season. I think. I don't know what you guys think.
It could be up there.
Sorry to interrupt. To add to your point there, I actually thought the kicking game in the first half was so poor, as in it was the wrong choice of kicks that they were going for. Like a player would be gassed and they would kick a ball which would need to be challenged and that we didn't have the energy to challenge, or it was one where we should be able to challenge and they just kick it long. It wasn't just the execution of the kick. I just felt like they constantly chose the wrong type of kick. You know, there was one where I think Tyndall had done a scoot on the 5th and then they kicked it down his side to chase. And if he's just played the ball, why are you kicking it to where the winger should be?
Extra effort, yeah.
You know, it's just the wrong choice. And like if we had a top level half, which is what we're crying out for, they would be making the right calls, the right kicks, and it helps the forwards get back on top. It helps the team get that momentum back, and we've missed that all year. We must have the weakest spine in the league. I think that showed against Salford.
Well, look, we can talk about the halves in the second half actually, because I think there's something that's changed in that second half in terms of the direction of the game. But I think the only positive for me in that first half was Newman's try. I was worried with the muted celebration because I think that was a fair reflection of how I think we're all feeling. Like, we got a try, probably didn't really deserve it, but somehow we got in the game. But I think that skill, that interception, that read that Newman's done is so easily to do badly. In that you could, it's a very hard skill to get right. And sometimes people can say it's lucky. I don't think you can say it's lucky when Newman's done it twice in a game. But when we got that try, Lawrie, did you think it's on?
My first initial thought, and I even remember this makes half-time a little bit more interesting, because it was one of those again where if we get the next point, the first points in the second half, then it's game up and again. And I just thought to myself, Rowan had to do something at our time. He had to sit him down and go, look, what's happened has happened. We have to go forward. Or what do you do? Do you just sit back and go, well, we're down to 12. I'm just going to try and keep the score respectable. And that Newman try just set the ground, I think, for pretty much the rest of the game. I think, would you say that changed the game? Possibly. I mean, obviously, was the sending off before or after?
Sending off was just after. So, it took, you could argue, it took
the shine
momentum away, really. But Josh, did you think that interception, that we had a shot at that point? Or do you think it was just a bit of a luck?
I actually did. Not just because of the interception, but the point I made earlier. I actually thought Wigan were very poor. They didn't impress me whatsoever, Wigan. I was talking to Mark on the group, who said the same. they were just going through the motions. They were just very average, and I just thought they're there to be had. If Rowan can pull something out of his ass and get these lads fired up, and then when Tetevano got sent off, I found like that was more of a thing. I texted my dad and said, "That's exactly what we need to fire them up," because they've just been so passive. I really felt it was an attitude thing, and then at half time, Stevie Ward was saying, he was talking so much about attitude and mental toughness, and I thought that's someone who's been in that changing room and had those conversations. And if he's thinking that, I thought, if there's a chance, like I'm not saying I predicted it whatsoever, but I did feel there was a chance, yeah.
I'm going to come
just
to
because,
Ward,
mainly because Wigan was so poor.
Stevie Ward said at half time, I'm going to come to a bit later actually, because he actually said he thought Leeds would do it. And I thought Stevie Ward was awesome on the coverage, actually. So let's talk about Tetevano. And for those of you that have listened to the Lot Pod before, you will know that my co-host or the original, the founder of this podcast isn't the biggest fan of Zain Tetevano. I think after the red card, he tweeted, "Get him out of the club" or something to that effect. It's
Worst marquee signing. Worst signing ever, I think he said. Yeah,
something like that. It's probably a good job he's not on the pod. I mean, I'll read a tweet he sent me out. He said, "It's very lucky I'm not on. I generally go ballistic." Was it a red, Josh? Was it a red?
Well, I've got a confession. I don't watch a lot of Super League because I think the standard has been getting worse and worse. However, I watch a hell of a lot of NRL.
This isn't a confession, Josh. We know this because you're messaging us at 6 o'clock in the morning about NRL games and we're all in bed still.
Well, that's having 2 kids under 3.
Yeah, true.
In the NRL this year, they've clamped down on any contact to the halves. So, for example, there was a shocker the other week where Victor Radley, it was so soft, touched Hastings, and he was straight red. So as soon as I saw it, my head, which is firmly in the NRL camp, just thought, he's going here. And then I thought, hang on, because everyone's been complaining in the NRL about it. It's an awful rule, But to me, looking back, it looked like shoulder to the head anyway, if I'm honest. And there was a hell of a lot of force to it. The lad looked like he'd got whiplash from it. It was a good hit, to be fair.
Well, that's what they look, don't they? Look at the flexion of the neck. I mean, Lawrie, was your instinct it was a red?
Yeah. As soon as it happened, I just went, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, what have you just done?" And I had people tweeting me at Lawrence Rio account going, "Oh, that's not a red. That's not even a yellow." It wouldn't have been about 5-10 years ago. That would have been just waved on, carried on, and well done, Zayn, well done. But it's not the game now. The game's moved on so much that is penalty, red card, you're off, you're spending a couple of weeks sat twiddling your thumbs because that is how the game has changed.
So I was in camp yellow, I'm going to be honest. And
really?
The reason why I'm in camp yellow is because the consistency of it. There was the one last week where it was the Catalan Saints game where I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Loma or someone got absolutely nailed and they weren't even given them a penalty on the day.
But it was the same ref.
It was the same ref. Yeah, and I think there was another incident. Was it at Cass or somewhere else in the same round? And so the reason why I thought it was a yellow is because the consistency in the league is just all over the place. If that's in Union, if I put my Union hat on, God, it'd be a red straight away. And it's just it annoys her with Zayn because that's the third. I think it's the third time he's been sent off, and he's had other yellows that are similar, but all for similar things. Just lazy late tackles and late hits that are not needed. And as Joe's is saying in the comments, that the frustrating thing, we'll probably see another one identical to that next week, and it might not get the same punishment. But it probably is a red, but my feeling it was a yellow because of the consistency, how it's been managed in the league at the moment. But how does this affect your guys' feeling on Zain Tetevano? He's in a contract year at the moment. He is being playing second row, which I prefer him at. But does this affect your feeling on whether we should give him a contract or not, Josh?
Doesn't affect anything because I didn't want him to get a new one anyway. I think I mean, just to bring it back quickly to the Rowan thing, I'm still in Camp Rowan because I remember when he arrived, this was a rebuild. We were all saying, let's not judge him till the second year, till he's got the squad that he wants. The salary cap is tight, so he's going to have to make some project signings this year, etc. He inherited Zayn. If he can get a good year out of him in the back row, then good, because we need him to perform. You know, we don't want to be. I've been on this pod before and criticised for being biased against Zane for giving him too much stick. I don't think that's true. I think we all want him to do well. But over his 3 years on marquee money, he's put in a handful of performances that have been worth, well, not worth the money, but I would say worth wearing the Rhinos shirt, which for me, the bare minimum is giving your all to play for that shirt. And I just think he hasn't done enough, anywhere near enough, to stay at the club. So I'm hoping that there's big money coming free at the end of the year when he leaves.
Lawrie, does it change your opinion on Zane at all? Or I don't know where, I can't remember where you were on this opinion, but or does it reaffirm your opinion on him?
I'm a bit 50-50. I think his game balance has changed, if you think about it, in the last year or so, since Rowan's came in. But it does make silly mistakes, doesn't he? And they have cost us. I mean, that time he got his first sending off, wasn't it? His first game Saints, wasn't it, in the cup?
Saints, yeah.
Or something like that. And it was just like, what are you doing? You know, I think it's one of those where, for me, he doesn't offer what we were paying him. And I know you've just said that, but I agree completely. I think he's one of those which, are we going to get any more out of him? Or is this his peak? And I think this is his peak. I don't think we're going to get anything more or anything more justifiable to give a contract for. I don't know.
What annoys me about him is he's either really weak. His yardage seems to be very poor. That's just eye test. Not, we've got the stat man to up on the top corner there, but his yardage doesn't seem very impressive to me when you put him next to a Mick or a Tom or whatever. But he's either very soft in attack and in defence, or he puts on these massive shots and gets sent off for him or sin binned for him. There's no balance or control of his aggression. And I think at the elite level, you need to be able to be aggressive in a controlled manner, and that's what he doesn't have.
So I think my mindset at the moment with this is that he's probably going to be banned now for 2-3 games. Gannon's coming back into fitness. So for me, it's just an opportunity for Gannon to take that spot and keep it and get it back now. So I think for me, there's actually a bit of a positive outlook in this, that Gannon has an opportunity now to get that shirt back and keep it. Because I think with him and McDonnell, we've got a hell of a young second row partnership moving
How
forward.
long is do you know how long McDonnell's out for?
A couple of weeks, I think. He won't be back next week, I don't think. So half-time, losing 14-6. Was the catalyst the red card? Was it Newman? What changed for you, Lawrie, in that between that half-time period?
Probably getting off the pitch in the first half. Weirdly. I know it sounds daft. It's probably one of those mental things of, you've done that half, you can't change that now. You've got to change it the next half. So I think it was a psychological thing of, then we've just scored a try and intercept, which was pretty crucial. We've now lost a player through a dangerous tackle. Let's get off the pitch. Let's get into benches. Let's just have 20 minutes where we sort ourselves out. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think Rowan spoke to the team, probably said, look, your game plan's not here. You've not done anything right. We need to sort this out. And I think, let's be honest, when we came back out, that first 5 minutes, it was a different team. There was an urgency, there was a passion, and it was like, is this going to last? Or is this just, have we just got that energy kick from having 20 minutes of chill out? I actually thought something happened in that, in half time, which obviously inspired them, and it's just, that were it.
Rugby league's a big momentum sport, isn't it? I mean, Josh, obviously last year we came back against Catalan with a man down. We've had other games we've had to make comebacks and had to make scoring late tries. Do you think part of it is that belief in that the squad has done it before? And I mean, you mentioned that a lot of that squad were young. I actually thought Matthew Shaw's article about Leeds, in terms of the project that you mentioned earlier, that Salford game, I think 10 of the players were under 24. But do you think that experience from last season, those comebacks, those late wins, helped and influenced them? The belief that they could do it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could say that Rowan's a bit of a comeback specialist. It's happened that many times. The thing
I'm actually going to jump
me,
another question here. Would you rather us win like this, or would you just want to go out and win a game?
I'd like to just go win a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, less stress.
Yeah. What worries me about it all is I don't know if it's the fact that someone's just put a comment here. Is it? I just read it. Was it Leeds banned it? And it's something I agree with. Yeah, it's like we had nothing to lose, so go out there, throw it about, and take risks and try and win it by pure attack. I think that's what happened. I think it was almost like Zayn was off, so the pressure was off. We're down. We've got nothing to lose. We're not going to win it by this one-up stuff and dropping the ball. No aggression in our attack. Just go for it. Just go for it. Almost like forget the game plan and go for it. It feels like we need something to happen in the first half to rev us up, or either to rev us up or to take the pressure off. Now, with them being such a young side, I haven't read Matt Shaw's article. I tend not to do. But if with them being such a young side, maybe they feel the pressure of, Leeds Wigan is a big game, and maybe there was a bit of pressure around them. I don't know, and maybe going in at halftime down to 12 men. Maybe that was the release they needed to just go and play their game, go and play what they are good at.
So, Lawrie, who do you think really sort of took control in that second half? Because I did see ZB Creative obviously really put out his Stone Cold Austin graphic again. Do you think it was Austin that sort of grabbed hold of that game? And
I'll be honest, no. And no offense to anybody who says that, I just think it was a team effort. Because if you look, as soon as they came onto that pitch, they were driving. There was a set of tackles straight away, and every tackle they went in for, every player, and it were almost like we're taking this, we're getting it. And you can argue Austin was. I mean, he seemed to go into lunatic mode in that second half, which was brilliant. But I just thought it was a drive from everybody. The forwards actually seemed to turn up in that second half and actually wanted to go for it. I think if we're looking for who's really leading us, I think it is a great question. But I think Cam, the Appreciation Society, I were applauding him because he seemed to be you could see him geeing everybody up. So I think it was a team effort where everybody was just working as a unit, which we haven't seen, have we, much this season?
Josh, do you agree with that, or do you think there was a player that sort of took it by the bull of the horns?
To be totally honest, I think there were three players in terms of attitude who drove us forward. And for me, that was Newman, Austin, and Holroyd. I think the three of them came out and were visibly fired up. Austin, it was hilarious, really. That first try, when in the second half, who scored? It was Myler, wasn't it? But
Holroyd got the first try, and then Myler got the second, I think.
Well, Myler, it was the one. There was one, wasn't there, where it was a bad kick. Someone broke down. It was a bad kick. There was an error. Austin picked it up and stumbled over. He looked that fatigued. And then the next play we scored off it. Is that the one where Myler put it up? And
there's one where Myler kicked it up, and no one from the Wigan team decided to catch it. It bounced straight into Smith's hands, and then Myler was
passed it to Myler.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to come on to. Basically, was I think them two attitude-wise fired us up, and there was a bit of aggression there, and maybe changed the attitude. But I don't think in skill level or direction we actually had any. So I'm quite level. I felt quite level-headed on this. After the game, I went on Twitter, and everyone was blowing up, all excited. And I had to give my head a shake because I was feeling pretty, not negative, but I still felt a bit disappointed with the performance. So if you look at that second half, we've got 3 interception tries.
Two in the second half, one in the first.
2 in the second half, one just before half time.
Yeah.
We've got 2 horrendous defensive efforts from Wigan. The one we've just mentioned where they didn't even bother to catch Myler's kick, and it wasn't exactly a tough kick to catch. Fell into Smith's hands, passed to Myler straight over the line. We had the one where Cammy got the ball 20 yards out and Cam's not known for his speed, and just plodded over through about 4 Wigan defenders.
I'm not sure Cam could believe he's looking that, because he has taken the ball to the line quite a lot recently, and he's not been biting the defenders and forcing decision with the pass. But that one, it literally was just like the parting of the sea, wasn't it? It was just
the last tackle as well.
It was so poor. It was so poor, and that comes back to what I said earlier in the first half. I just didn't think Wigan were playing well, and then they obviously got that try through Thornley, was it, where Newman just jumped out of that did my head in, that when Newman ran out, because I felt like that was a bit of a selfish play, him trying to make it all about him a little bit. And I don't know if that's the narrative that's just starting to build from people like Brian Carney saying he's a one-man energy and things like that. But it did annoy me that just poor communication. But overall, to answer your question, did one person lead it? I just kind of felt as a team, 3 people led it in terms of attitude. Maybe there was others that I've missed, whatever. Skill level, I didn't particularly think someone got the game by the scruff of the neck and said, right, I'm going to organise this. We're going to go for this play, that play. I actually felt still quite worried about our lack of cohesion in attack. I felt like it was all down to individual brilliance, individual, interception tries, or like the Martin try was the only one which I thought was pretty good. It went through 3 or 4 sets of hands, offloads. I liked that one. I thought that was good. But I didn't feel like we were particularly great. The spine, I didn't think particularly, I don't feel like we put on any set plays or we did any game plan. I felt like it was a mixture between Wigan just falling apart, being terrible in defence, and us stepping it up a gear and some individual brilliance that got us there.
Doesn't that just show how poor we were in the first half, that we didn't exploit how bad they were? And then in the second half, once we just go, we'll just turn it up a notch, we absolutely obliterated them. Because let's be honest, if we'd have done that in the first half, that we could have even put 60, 70 past them. I know that sounds arrogant, but if we'd have actually clued ourselves up and exploited them, we could have really done some damage there.
You've got to remember, they've lost 2 in the bounce as much as, same as we have, and they've lost to Hull. At least we lost to 2 fairly decent sides in the last 2 games. They've lost to Hull. That was the second most amount of missed tackles they've ever made this season, Wigan. It's also the most tries they've conceded. It's also the most points they've conceded. So, there's something for us to take in that. My favourite moment of that second half, and it's always come down to this, it's when you get a prop on the loose and that little nice short pass from Holroyd to Lasone. And I still have no idea how Bevan French made that tackle, because Lasone looked like he was going like an absolute steam train. I've never seen him run that fast. And then
the momentum he had.
I know. I was fully expecting him to floor Bevan French. It's my favourite moment of the game, but also most disappointing, because I thought fullback, prop with a 20-metre run-up, going full steam. And they're going, oh, come on.
There was no step, was there?
No. There was no chance Lasone was going to go for the step at all. But that was my favourite moment of the second half, because I know Josh, you're saying there was some poor defence from Wigan, and there was, but this Leeds team hasn't taken those chances in previous games, and I think we have to applaud the fact that they have taken those chances today. And I think that the Sony carry for me was probably the funniest and my favourite moment. Lawrie, do you have a favourite moment from that half?
To be fair, that was my favourite, because you could just see it was almost a weird reaction of what's just happened. Like Bevan French, who, let's be honest, he were carrying Wigan. I thought he was literally like their shining light on Friday, and then he comes and does a tackle like that, which was pretty impressive. But no, that was probably the best moment. But then again, I thought Tyndall's cut inside. That I did the thing of sheer horror of.
I saw you tweet about this and you weren't happy about it. I thought it was a complete right thing to do.
Personally, I thought just with Tyndall, this sounds horrible. It sounds like a character assassination. I thought if Tyndall cuts inside, is he even going to get tackled or lose the ball? 1-man strip. That's what I feared. And then when he did it and did like the little powered past him, I thought fair play, you've actually done all right there.
And he well and truly did him.
He did. Oh no, full credit. That's what I mean. Full credit. It was one of those where I was thinking, please, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I felt that and the French tackle. Yeah, both got great moments.
So whilst we've got Tyndall, actually, because I'll use that moment just to do a couple of stats, actually, just to explain that. So I've mentioned a couple already in that obviously 40 points is actually our best total so far this season. 7 tries is our joint best total because we got 7 against Catalan in that game. As I mentioned, it was the most points that Wigan conceded so far this year and also the most tries. It was also the second highest missed tackle count for Wigan in the game this year, which probably supports what you were saying, Josh, about their defensive capability. For us, 7.8 metres per carry was the second best we've done so far this season and was actually the joint best for round 12 as well. Newman topped the metre chart, which probably doesn't surprise many because he had 2 interception tries. But he got 207. It's actually the 5th time a Rhinos player's made over 200 metres in one game. I know, Josh, you're always texting me on Twitter going, why don't people make 300 metres? They're doing the NRL. I generally think they count them differently. I don't know. But there has been one player to make over 300, and that's actually, I believe it's Liam Marshall. He made 302, I think, in 1 week. But Rhinos actually have the most amount of players with over 200 metres in one game. We've got 5 players that have made 5 instances of a player making over 200 metres. Warrington are next in the list and that. Other people that made over 100 metres were Tyndall, 148, probably again part of it from the interception. Austin, 130, and McDonald again at 117. Tyndall led the tackle bus chart with 6. He was followed by Cameron Smith with 5, and Aledzki, Martin, and Austin also got 4 each. And then in the latest episode of the Cameron Smith O'Connor tackle competition, Smith topped the charts with 48 and O'Connor had 41. And you mentioned the props. Obviously, last week I mentioned the average for a prop at the moment per game is around 70 metres. That was based on up to round 11. We had 3 props that made over that this week, which surely isn't a coincidence in that, we're making over that average and we're winning that game. I actually thought Aledzki had the best stats in the props wise because he actually had the most carries out of any of the props. I think he did 11 carries, 80 metres, 7.3 average gain. He made 27 tackles, which was the 3rd most on the day. And he also had 4 tackle busts as well. So I think Aledzki, hopefully signs of him coming back into the groove as well. Man of the match, gents. Josh, who's your man of the match?
It's a tricky one. Just because, similar to what Lawrie was saying, I think everybody just stepped up. Although I do think there was moments of individual brilliance, players like Newman. I actually think overall, Austin maybe tried the hardest and had the most impact on the game. He didn't necessarily have one standout moment, but I think that second half, for me, was the most that came out the most, and his attitude just read like, we're going to go and win this, or we're going to die trying sort of attitude, you know what I mean? So I would probably give it to him.
Lawrie, your man of the match?
Newman. I totally forgot about his little dust-up that he had with Marshall, which was hilarious. Which one of my mates commented on Twitter going, "Oh, it's like he's having an argument with Voldemort," and I was just like, "Oh, that's an absolute genius line." I couldn't. Every time I watched a clip back, I was just like, "Yeah, you're right there." But no, Newman. It was probably his best performance since really coming back, I thought.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you on that one. But I do think that Austin was the man of the match for me. So the Lot Pod man of the match this week goes to Austin. One more question before we go into other topics is obviously that performance in the second half comes from adversity and reacting to it. Do you think we can actually start a game like that? Obviously, or do we just need to be better from the start? What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, we can't keep going on. It's a risky play, isn't it? I've heard people say, do you think we conserve the energy for the second half? But I've seen games where we just look gassed in the second half anyway. I don't particularly think we're a fitter team than anyone else. I just think it's down to playing poor, then the shackles being off, go out, do your thing, and then when we play like that, we get points. But we need to address it. If we're going to do anything this year, we need to address it, and we need to go out and start playing like that. However, I do think we're in a building phase, and all this is good. experience for that young team that we have. I do think an elite spine would help in this, because I think the theme of this season is we've just looked a bit directionless, and a lot of our poor defeats have been through just not having anyone to get us out of a bad situation or direct us forward. Do you know what I mean? I just think we've sort of, a lot of the time it looks like we're just playing one man at rugby, but I don't think that's necessarily the game plan. I think that's because the halves aren't kicking us into different areas or implementing a decent game plan.
Lawrie, would you like to see us? Do you think we can start games like we can, like in the second half, or do you think we need to just be better normal?
Yes, but I do think it requires game management, which we don't really have unless there's a serious problem, or a good, real strong leadership, and that's not possible when you've got 5 players who are kind of supposed to be the leaders on the park. So I know they say there's one each week, but I think we just need somebody just to have that structure, that influence, or just, I know it's the coach, you can also say, but just we can't be a one-half team. It's just killing us. We need to be just structured for the whole game if we can.
See, I'm going to disagree. I love the chaos. I just think, it's. I don't want to be bored. I like the chaos. I think we look so much better in the unstructured open play, but I don't think you can have both. I want us to be secure in defence as well. So, and we've made the most offloads out of any team this year. So and I think that's something about Leeds, off the cuff, the excitement. I kind of want that, but I don't think I can want that and also want structured defence, because I don't think they come together.
I think we can have the offloads and the unstructured attack and go for it from the first minute, though. I mean, when we were dominant, we were always off the cuff. Our best games have been when we've been offloading, and Cuthbertson, for example, topping those.
But he'd make like 25 offloads a game or something with Cuthbertson or something like that. I don't know how the league didn't cut on to Cuthbertson. I have no idea. Okay, in the interest of trying to keep this under an hour, which we're not going to do, the subject I'd like to talk about next is the rumours from Rugby League Live that Sam Walters will be leaving Leeds Rhinos at the end of the season. For the life of me, I can't remember who the club was. If the club was mentioned, can one of you remind me?
Wigan.
People have been saying Wigan.
Okay. So I've got a couple of stats about Sam Walters first, and then I'm going to ask you both about what your opinion is on it. So in 2022 season, Sam played 12 times. His average meters per game was 49.1. His average carry was 7.2, and he made about 16.3 tackles. If I look at this season, obviously it's a much smaller database set, because unfortunately Sam hasn't played a lot. But Sam has played 4 games. He averages 64 meters per game, 6.7 average gain, 9.5 carries, and then also averages about 19.8 tackles per game. He's also missed 9.2% of tackles he's attempted. Those stats are behind Aledski, Tetivano, and Lasone, but is better than Justin Sangare. I'm trying to find Holroyd on my list here, but I can't seem to find him for some reason. So, Lawrie, have the club made a mistake?
I'm really borderline. I'm confused by this, and it sounds really daft, but I think the club have obviously offered him a deal, but he clearly thinks, what else can I get out there? Does it match what I think I'm worth? And we can't be in that game, man. We can't be in that situation where we're offering higher than what the player's actually worth. That just gets daft, as we're finding out with Tetivano now. If he thinks he can get more elsewhere, let him go. All right. And that sounds harsh, and we are losing a good prospect. But what I think is, we're going to end up in a position where, if we're going to end up people demanding more and more money, where does it end? What does it end with? And it's going to end up being like we could end up losing more players through this, or like that. It influences everybody else. So for me, Sam Walters, great player, but is it justifiable him getting a load more money than some of the others for his stats and his worth? I'm not sure. He's a young prospect, don't get me wrong, and he's obviously nowhere near being the peak yet. But I just think if he's become too big for his boots, maybe it's let him go. I don't know. I'm a bit torn, personally. I think we have offered, but not a massive amount. I don't know.
Is he a good player, Lawrie, or is he a good prospect?
That's a great question. Prospect for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the key for me. Josh, what's your opinion on it?
I think he is a good player, and I also think he's a good prospect.
That's just cheating. You can't. And I said one or the other. One or the other.
I think he's a good player now. I would have him ahead of Lizzoni. I'd have him ahead of Tetevano. I'd probably have him ahead of Singare. I'd have him ahead of Donaldson. All of which are on pro contracts in their later years, apart from Singare. Probably earning a hell of a lot more than what he's earning. If you say to me, would you rather pay... He won't be asking for as much as what Tetevano's been on. And I'd rather he played...
No, but you've also got... I think that's also quite an unfair comparison. You've got a grand finalist NRL, a much more experienced player than Sam Walters. Now, Sam Walters will command a value because he's a homegrown English prospect. Any Super League team will want an English prospect. Because if you look at most of the quota players that are used across the league, it's on a prop. So having an English prop in there and I think Walters.
So why are we letting him go?
What I was
going to finish saying was we're happy to spend all this money on an overseas player who's coming to the end of his career, who doesn't perform. More often than not, they're not performing for us. Whereas we've got this prospect. Even let's go with him being a prospect. Why don't we pay a little bit more and keep him and see how he develops? The fact that he is English saves us a quota spot for somewhere important like the Spine next year. And we're sat here saying, oh, he's asking for too much money. We don't know that. All that's happened is that Matt Shaw's or whoever at League Live, Aaron Bauer, has put out an article saying he's leaving. We don't know that. We just, it's all speculation.
I have no doubt that Leeds have offered him a deal because Leeds will.
But what I'm saying is,
let's not say Leeds don't want him, but obviously he's made a decision for whatever reason that he's either got a better offer somewhere, which might have happened. I did read somewhere that apparently he still lives over that way. He is obviously from Widnes, so I don't know if that comes into it as well. But I think you're looking at the schematics of just the player itself. I do think Leeds are losing an asset massively.
Yeah.
If you look at that, just really quickly, if you look at Holroyd, O'Connor, Oledzki, McDonnell, Gannon, Smith, Walters, Holroyd, that is a pack that could dominate for the next decade without a single quota spot, if I'm right. And you get dispensation for academy-grown players. So if you pay slightly more now to keep him, you're getting dispensation on the cap anyway. So why are we so, accepting of a middle, like Lizzoni, for example, he's not tearing up any trees in the NRL. He's an average NRL player who will cost so much more than a player like Walters and will cost more to us on the cap than a player like any of the overseas players because of the dispensation and everything. So I think we should have done more to keep him. Unless he's asking for, 200 grand a season. I just can't see him. What I'm trying to say is, maybe I'm not articulating this well. I don't think what he'll have been at. I don't think he's going to go to Wigan and they're going to give him a hell of a load of money. No.
But they're losing Brad Singleton, aren't they? So Brad Singleton's leaving Wigan. So they see him as a replacement for Brad Singleton, who in the moment it has number 8 on his back of his jersey at Wigan.
Yeah, and we got O'Donnell. But and that's the same thing for them, isn't it? So I understand it, but if it was down to me, I would have been doing everything I could to keep him. And for the prospect player thing, I've rated it like all of last year. I really rated him. As soon as he went to prop, I thought, I know Barry Mack didn't like that, but I just thought he's been every game I've seen him play, I've seen so much potential there. And it's not looking at the stats. It's not just about the amount of carries or the amount of meters he's made. The carries that he does make are often the important ones, and chaos happens afterwards. He always knocks players down. There's always a bit of space afterwards. It's not just, oh, he managed to get 7 meters or whatever. It's often a really valuable contact. If that makes sense.
And I always say stats on still part of the story. You know, you can't measure the chaos. A couple of comments that people have been asking in here is, do you think people's opinion of Sam Walters has been inflated, or if you took away his game against Saints this year, do you think people would be less upset with him going, Lawrie?
No, because he had some good performances last year as well, didn't he? I mean, I know he did stand out in that Saints game. I think
because for me, this should have been done in the off season.
Oh yeah, completely agree.
And that's my disappointment in this, in that it's come to this point. No.
But then again, we don't know if he didn't want to speak, or we don't know whether his agent was saying, "We'll delay it," you know, and almost let him get into the free market where anybody can get him. I think for me, the issue, and I'm going to slightly diverge off this, but very quickly, is if you look at our academy recently, look how many good props have come through, and forwards, I should say, really. Are we worried that we're losing somebody when there could be somebody else who's coming through very quickly? It's almost like he's at that age where we could actually be all right, you know, in the next year or two, because somebody else could come through. I think it's a development aspect as well. Maybe the club think we've got some prospects who are possibly better, who could do a better job than Walters. I don't know.
I think the Dupree thing has shocked people as well.
Yeah,
because he's come out and he's started this year really well, and it just feels like we're letting another one go.
You can come back, Dupree. It's fine. We'll just sign him again. We'll just say thanks all for doing the work. We'll take him back.
yeah. Even Croft for about a couple of $100,000.
Yeah. All you have to do is give them 25 quid and you can become a director now, can't you? At Salford. That's how it works. Okay. Onto another sort of player rumour. So this one's a bit more of a rumour as opposed to confirmed. Is Liam Tyndall has apparently been offered a contract by Hull FC. Lawrie, I'll start with you on this one. Do you think, again, a Rhino shoot themselves in the foot with Tyndall, or are you in a slightly different opinion to how you feel with Walters?
No, I think without sounding harsh on the lad, he does make too many errors, and there are a few elements of his game which are quite poor, I think. So for me, it's not a big loss. That's how I see it. Not a massive loss.
I don't think Tyndall's had the full opportunity really to play in a Rhino shirt. I think next year with Fussy 2 going, there is a number 2 shirt available. Whether I'd want Tyndall in the number 2 shirt is probably a different question, but I also don't know what we'll be doing in the off-season. Josh, would you be sad to see Liam Tyndall go?
Yeah, nothing, like Lawrie said, there's nothing against him. But I just feel like we have a surplus amount of backup wingers, and you just pick any one of them and put them on the wing for me at the minute. I think we lack another top-level winger to partner Ash. I'm guessing Fussy's going. And he was playing well at the start of this year. It's just a shame about this injury. But he's just not really had his chance here. With Tyndall, I think like he's come in and he's maybe been 6 out of 10, 5.5, 6 out of 10. But I feel like we have like maybe 3 or 4 of those young players and prospects that could do that job. I don't know what his ceiling is either. I feel totally differently to the Wallace thing. I'm so upset about the Wallace thing, as you can probably tell.
Players will come and go, and people will be more upset about some than the others. There might be someone listening to this that's more upset about Tyndall than Walters. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I did see some comment on it saying that I don't get the Walters thing. I am upset about the Walters thing, like you are. Tyndall, for me, I think we've got a lot. Winger, we've got people coming through. That Ned McCormack that we've signed, that England under 20, he's a centre fullback wing. There's Alfie Edgell, I think he's a fullback wing. So we've got people coming up. We might even make Nene a full-time winger next year, which I wouldn't be that bothered about if Max Simpson starts progressing after his ACL in centre. So I think there's enough movement to do around. Prop is such a commodity.
I was going to say, for me, it's bit Matt Calderwood part 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, Paul Ramsden's just put Max Simpson will be back next year so he can go centre and put Ned in the wing. Max looked like he was putting on, looked like he'd been in Global Gym all summer. So someone in the comments asked, is Tyndall related to Mike Tyndall from Union? No, he most definitely is not. Not at all. Okay. Next thing I just want to talk about is Toby Warren. So those of you that might not know, in the reserve game, they did actually have to call it off after 59, 60 minutes, as there was quite a nasty injury to Toby Warren. But the good news was that all the signs seemed positive with Toby. So we wish Toby all the best. And then finally, it was the marathon today. I'm assuming none of us did it today.
No.
Because we are all Josh is the slimmer one of the three. Josh probably looks more like a runner than the three of us. But I think there was something like 12,000, 13,000 runners, I think, today, obviously doing it. I'm assuming you've all seen the amazing footage of Kevin and Rob. Lawrie, any words on that?
There is no words, is there?
No, it's outstanding.
That should be the image in every newspaper tomorrow. They don't care if it's front page, whatever. Just
That should be the image on the changing rooms at Headingley.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fantastic. Obviously, Lindsay Burrow ran the marathon as well. That was her first marathon, so congratulations to her. And everyone that took part, both in the full and half marathon, including Rob Oates, obviously the friend of the podcast. I think the Leeds Rhinos team themselves, they've raised something around, last time I looked, about 32,000 themselves for people from the club. So well done to all those involved. Go on, Josh.
Did you hear Kev's speech just before they set off?
Yes.
Yeah.
How good must he have been in the sheds?
There's people like him where you could prepare for that speech all in the world. Like I'm getting married in September. I've been writing this speech the last 2 months. I've still got another 4 months. It's still going to be crap on the day. I know Kevin Simford could just turn up at my wedding, do my wedding speech for me, and it would be the most emotional thing you'll ever heard and perfect and hit the tone. And he's never met me. He is just there are people that are just natural gifted leaders, aren't they?
He's just got it, hasn't he? Yeah. And I think he said they'd raised 3 million up until that point for different charities, which is brilliant.
So certainly that title, Sir Kev, will be coming forward at some point. They will be doing the half marathon and full marathon again next year. I've already had the email. So anyone obviously interested, check out the website for that. Last but least, preview of the Wigan game Challenge Cup next week. Is it a half two kickoff? Half two. Tickets are reduced. I believe they are £15. Josh, what's your prediction for that Challenge Cup game?
It's always a weird one, isn't it, playing the same team twice? It'd be quite interesting to see what one for your stat man is. Interesting to see how we fare doing that in past games.
Oh, you'll have to ask Andy at LAFC Stats because he's
he'd be good at
that game under the sun.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It just depends which Leeds turn up, doesn't it? As we've said all year. They'll be able to prove a point. I would say, let's say Leeds by 13 plus.
How many, sorry?
13 plus.
13 plus, right, okay, good. You knew exactly what I was going to do then. You knew I was going to go full Eddie and go, just give me a number. Lawrie, what's your prediction for next week?
I'm going to say exactly what I said about the league game. I think he will win. We'll either win comfortably or Wigan will hammer us. I think it's a bit one of those. I hope we win. If we lose, we can focus on the league.
As host of the Lot Pod this week, I will say Leeds by 38 in true fashion of continuing. Thank you, Lawrie, Josh, for joining me tonight. Thanks for everyone in the chat that's been on. Those of you that haven't listened yet, we had a great conversation with Fran Goldthorpe last week before she heads off to Australia. So please make sure you check out that podcast. Also, please keep an eye out for my channel this week, the Owl and Fleece. We will be starting the raffle for the Rob Burrow jersey that Oxon has kindly donated to myself. So I'll release details of that later in the week. But in the meantime, thanks for all joining. This will be all available on the usual channels as always, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much.